Welcome back to the bar, everyone. Dr. Drunk, aka, here with another World of Warships game for you. This time we are in the Tier 9 Commonwealth Cruiser. I'm not even sure what to call this. It's Commonwealth Cruiser. I don't know if it's Australian, if it's American, I don't know, or Australian, or I don't know, whatever. The Hector. We're divvied up with the incredible Sextol and PJ in the Sejong and the Kitakazi. We are in a carrier game with a submarine. What do you need to know about the Hector? Well, if you're at all familiar with the Perth, which is a Tier 6 Commonwealth cruiser, HMAS, that is an Australian cruiser, this is a larger version of the Perth. Oddly enough, it's larger with littler guns. The Perth is 155 mil or 152 mil guns. These are, I believe, 133, but this ship has a whole lot of them. It has 7 turrets. It also has a heel, a hydroacoustic search, which is a relatively short-range hydroacoustic compared to the typical Germans, and it has a crawling smoke, which is almost unique for... it essentially is unique to Commonwealth ships, with the only other ones having a crawling smoke being the Vampire 2, and of course, the aforementioned Perth. The Hector is an interesting ship. For a first look on it, you can take a look at the first look video, which I did, and I will attempt to remember to link in the video description below. But she really is a support cruiser. Really cannot do significant amounts of work on her own. She needs a spotter, and she is very, very, very squishy. She is essentially overmatched by pretty much everything at the tier. Possibly with the exception of the Scharnhorst, with its 11-inch guns. But pretty much any kind of battleship AP is going to do heavy damage to the Hector. Now, being that we are in a carrier game and there is a submarine in-game, oh yay, we all love submarines. They were the greatest thing you could have included, Wargaming. We're going to have to play conservatively. As it stands, we're going to pop our smoke here, and we're going to attempt to get some resets on this there. Yes, this is probably a rather poor position to deploy smoke, but we do have 4 of them, and they last for 2 minutes apiece, so we can slowly crawl our way to and attempt to keep it reset while our Shimakaze goes to grab it. I should mention that, as you can see, the ballistics on the Hector are they're poor at best. This is not a Russian-gunned ship. It's what are essentially destroyer-caliber guns on a cruiser. They're very floaty. Hitting a Kleber at even ranges of 12 kilometers, 10 to 12 kilometers, is going to be a challenge, especially if that Kleber player has even 2 brain cells to rub together. Of course, he decides to come back after our Shimakaze, and he kind of honestly doesn't have a lot of brain cells, because at 7.5k he knew there was a smoke screen here. He knows the carrier's coming. And he's inherently being very predictable in terms of his maneuvering. He also repaired his, I think it was a broken engine or fire, whatever it was that's been sent in previously. And exposes himself essentially to further fire damage or incapacitations or modules or what have you. Our CV is doing the right thing. It's a side ban, but he is doing the right thing, and he is trying to keep this Kleber spotted. He also is doing me quite a favor by by keeping the Kleber in one place, and oh look, Wargaming, my favorite thing ever in the game, to appear just behind me, that cute little thing called a submarine. Thankfully, my Hydro is running, and we were able to spot it. And of course, if anything we have learned from the introduction of submarines, and anything that submarines have done for the player base, Submarines have taught this player base how to focus fire like absolutely no other class in the game. Because they are so despised and so hated, everybody wants the pleasure of murdering them as soon as they're possibly spotted. That being said, he sub-dives, get away from him, and the Kleber is back in the cap. We can't really push in to deal with that, especially with carrier spotting in a submarine, because, let's be honest, shotgunning doesn't happen. Right? Wargaming, shotgunning isn't a thing. God forbid I don't want to be able to spot a submarine at literally 2 kilometers with hydroacoustic search, which is, you know, just the thing that was created to deal with subs and counter subs in real life. But we can't use the real life excuse now because this is just game balance. Average moron in the submarine needs to be able to live as long as possible because, as I said, average moron in a submarine. And, of course, as is tradition, when we kill a sub, we tell the sub to eat shit. So that hopefully submarine players will figure out that they are unwanted and just stop playing them. Aha, we can always dream. Always dream. Anyway, moving on. We are firmly in control of Bravo Cap. They are starting to push through C and into B, and it looks like a push is sort of starting just to the south of A Cap. Well, we have to be extremely careful here. And I will tell you why we have to be extremely careful here, because a Minnesota, an Izumo, and I believe a Montana are on the outside of A Cap. What that means for us is we're overmatched by everybody from almost any angle. In fact, without looking at the armor viewer, I can almost safely say that unless you get perfect angling and they absolutely perfectly hit your armor belt, they will overmatch your belt and upper belt as well. A is being capped by a Shimakaze. Our North Carolina has not decided to use his brain and figures, well, I can go push it into a Tier 10 destroyer with a lot of torpedoes. So, spoiler alert, this guy is going to be not long for this world, as the phrase goes. You can actually see his HP bar just floating away into the ether. So the North Carolina goes down, and we're now down ships to 2. One of those ships being a submarine, so no great loss. Of course, our submarine has also died, and that is very beneficial. So anytime we can get both them and a carrier out of the game, we run into a beautiful game again. We smoke with the intention of trying to delay this cap, and hoping our gearing decides, you know, I can go into that, and I can spot the Shimakaze. And if I spot the Shimakaze, my artillery cruiser, which will eat a Shima, any meal of the day, will help me kill it. Does our gearing decide to do that? Not particularly. He decides to run away in pursuit of the enemy in Blackpool. Now granted, I can't really argue with the concept of killing a carrier. After all, it's one of the most pleasurable things you can do with warships at this point, but we could really use the spotting down here, and we could really use the torpedoes to potentially help stop the triple battleship from pushing. In any case, PJ and PJ and the incredible Sextol are doing their best to work over C-Cap up on the north end of the map. However, they are pushing fairly effectively there as well. Being that we are down 175 points or so at this point, and probably going to lose our Shima in pursuit of the carrier, it's time to try to make a play. The Minnesota spotted coming around the corner. This is problematic for me, because the Minnesota is armed with 16-inch guns. 16-inch guns are extremely good at overmatching my really, really weak cruisers AA, or armor, excuse me. We have an Izumo to our right-hand side. We have a Minnesota coming around our rear end. We'd like to stay in this cap. However, I don't know that we actually can stay in this cap. We have to try and tuck in and hope that the Iowa and the carrier can dissuade the Minnesota from coming on the island. Spoiler alert, he ain't stopping, folks. So the best opportunity here is not to try and reverse, but to slam into the island and sort of bounce off the island in reverse. You notice we have 100 seconds, almost 2 minutes till our smoke screen, and this bodes very poorly for us because, again, overmatch is a real thing. And Minnesota, while not a great ship, is not that bad of a ship compared to the Kansas. It generally can hit what it's aiming at, and it can generally punish what it is. So we're forced to leave the cap, and we're forced to do the hippie shake, which results in us immediately losing half of our health. Oh, fun and engaging gameplay. Gosh, how do I love it. Wargaming wonders why light cruisers are a dying class in the game. Thankfully, the Izumo has decided he did not want to come through the cap, and he wanted to actually go around the cap. That's perfectly fine with me. Lets me back out of this after delaying it momentarily and try to put an island between myself and Minnesota. We're down about 200 points at this point. Somebody is capping Bravo. I'm spotted from whatever is capping Bravo, which is mildly terrifying. PJ goes down up north, after capping Charlie and trying to help hold it against a Neptune. Whereas we are relatively completely stuck between a rock and a hard place. We're spotted from Bravo cap, and there's not a damn thing we can do about it. We have 17 seconds until our smoke. Thankfully, the Ohio murders the Neptune. The Gearing is sitting in his vape cloud in the middle of A, so we will get A as a trade here. But we've got a carrier coming. We have a Minnesota on our broadside, and magically delicious Montana shells appear from behind us, just as our smoke comes up, and we lose 17,000 hit points on one hit. And then, oh look, to compound matters, that appears to be Shimatorps. Well, we can't sit here in smoke, otherwise we die. We need to accelerate, but we're going to outrun our smoke screen. If we outrun our smoke screen, we're going to be spotted by the Shimakaze that is right in front of us. With IFA, incoming fire alert, pinging, I know there's more Montana shells coming, and that's just an easy 10k that he removes from me the second time. Thankfully, we have an improved heal. So our Gearing will get A. The Iowa and the CV managed to kill the Minnesota, which is incredibly blessed for us. The Montana will no doubt want me to die, as he's been after me most of the game, but we do have the opportunity here to make a play. Kleber is going to murder our Sejong, as is probably apparent. Actually, Sejong does have a heal already, which is actually very positive for him. He'll be able to delay anybody getting into Charlie for quite a while, and he does manage to trade with Kleber. Now, at this point, we are not detected, which means that that destroyer, wherever he is behind an island in front of us, and the fact that this is a contested cap means he's in the cap with us. We don't have a hydro for 27 seconds. We do have 40 seconds of smoke remaining, but sitting in smoke with no hydro is generally a good way to get yourself killed, and amazing wonder of wonders, the Shimakaze is coming to finish what he started. However, this is a Hector. These guns hit extremely hard. Remember, this is essentially a light cruiser with a whole lot of guns. We got our hydro back, we know the torps are coming, and we just easy slip between them like a college kid slips between two frat girls. Frat frat girls, 2 sorority girls. Frat girls maybe a mistake. 2 sorority girls at a party. Now, the Shimma was kind enough to leave us a smokescreen. What a guy. Make sure we compliment him afterwards, and compliment him for not triple stacking his torpedoes appropriately. At this point, we could sit here, and we could farm the Montana, but we would probably be better off removing Fletcher, who's on 370 hit points. We make a critical decision at this point. Say, all right, fine. We're going to get this Fletcher dead. We get the Fletcher dead, and then we guarantee they can't recap. However, it might cost me my ship, because the Montana is paying attention in what is tastier than a light cruiser broadside. Thankfully, he has aim of a generalized co-op bot, and we are able to dodge an entire salvo from about there. Okay. In Wonder of Wonders, we are hit by HE from the Izano. On the plus side, between killing the Fletcher and grabbing all the caps, we have a 50-point lead. This is an incredibly good turnaround, because if we have a 50-point lead, all we have to do is probably try and stay alive and force them to try and cap with battleships, which is going to be very, very difficult for them to actually do. Now, here's the point in the match where I get a little greedy.
Victory is in sight.
The CV could be resetting the Izamo, which continues to guarantee our win. In fact, this win is more than likely sealed at this point. At least that's what I'm thinking. The reason why I'm thinking this win could not be sealed at this point is the fact that our Iowa is dead. So the points are basically equalized now. They're up on cap, but that cap will disappear quickly, assuming the Montana turns into it. The other thing that can potentially not guarantee a win for us is this goddamn CV. This guy is going to cover me incessantly for the vast majority of the game. He is going to be glued to me like some analogy which I cannot come up with. Very, very good commentary, as I say. At this point, we tell the CV to run, and we look at the fact that there is a Montana that's probably going to come around the corner, since he didn't go into the cap. Honestly, if he'd gone into the cap, this game ends quite a bit differently. Spoiler alert. Just minor spoiler alert. This game would end very differently if he had walked into that cap, because I can't see him to reset him. The CV doesn't see him, and he would have had time to collect that cap. Our CV does do one thing, which is both a blessing and curse. CV drops a fighter over us. Fine, all well and good. The problem is, however, that basically points to their CV to directly where I am. Not something I really want to bring attention to. However, of course, I'm shooting, so I think the smokescreen and the shells can believe that there's a cruiser here somewhere. I give the Montana credit for taking a blind shot here, trying to get a kill. At this point, all we really have to do is live for a minute and 25 seconds, which sounds good in theory. But we also have to make sure that our carrier stays alive, so that we don't lose 100. This was before the points changed, by the way, so we didn't lose a significant. It was 120 points, maybe? I'm trying to remember what it was, and I can't remember off the top of my head. We don't want to lose our carrier. And if we lose our carrier, there's a real chance that we could lose this game. The main problem is the CV could spot our carrier for the Montanas to roll remove in a single salvo. Their CV has chosen to instead run the smoke screen. And again, this is not really a bad choice, because they all know this is a light cruiser on about 2,000 health. A couple of torpedoes pretty much does the trick. A couple of lucky shell hits pretty much does the trick. And they're looking for a way to equalize these points because the Izano is capping Roma. Looking for a way to equalize these points and take the win, which they very well could do if they're able to get this kill. Luckily, we only take one of those storms for 1,900 points of damage, and the points tick down to a solid win. As the time runs out, look at that. Yep, that was me getting nuked at the end. However, it didn't count. We win with 122,000 damage, almost a little more than 800,000 credits, top of the team with 2,800 base XP. A little look at the damage done. 2.16 million potential damage in a light cruiser, and a whole bucket load of ship XP. Guys, we play all of these on the Twitch channel, twitch.tv/DrDrunkAKA. Head on over there, drop us a follow, much appreciated, and drop a like on this on YouTube. Thanks, appreciate it. It is last call. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.